Welcome to the Dog Behavior and Safety class for the Humane Society for Tacoma and Pierce County. This is a typical shelter dog. This is CJ. He came in December of 2017. When CJ arrived, this is his condition. Really poor skin, really kind of in a sad state when CJ first got here. After being in our shelter for some time, this is CJ today. You can see him here. He's interacting with a group of volunteers. He's going for an off-site walk. He's spending some time in the office of one of our volunteers. This is just an example of what you guys do for these shelter animals. If it wasn't for volunteers, CJ could have easily spent over a year in our shelter. Just his highlights of his day would be breakfast and dinner, and then the rest of his day would just be staring at the walls. So you guys really enrich the lives of these shelter animals. This is our agenda for this class. It is going to be an introduction to basic shelter information. We'd like you to understand safety protocols, be able to observe behavior objectively, and have a basic understanding of canine body language. These are the kennel golden rules. We want you to observe principles of proper sanitation and disease containment, which means from going to clean to more contaminated areas. So we want you to handle the most vulnerable populations first. Those are going to be the puppies and senior dogs before featured adults, and lastly, the isolations. Use safety equipment at all times, return all equipment to its proper place, and keep clutter to a minimum. We want you to follow the directions of the staff. Inside the kennel area, dogs should be on a slip leash or a leash attached to a martingale collar. We want you to maintain control of the dog at all times. No nose-to-nose contact with dogs. So that means your dog can't go up to another kennel and start sniffing the other dog, or can't interact with other dogs while on a walk. A great rule of thumb that's easy to remember is when in doubt, don't. This is our Canine Communication Center. This board is going to list all the dogs that you can interact with when you come in to volunteer. So this is where you're going to start when you come in for your shift. After you've logged in and checked out your keys, is check this whiteboard to see what dogs are available for you to interact with. These are our dog volunteer levels. This means the paw colors that will go on your volunteer badge. Blue paw means you've watched this dog behavior and safety class, and you can handle dogs with a trainer present. The next step would be training in your specific pathway, whether it's dog walking, bath brigade, or dog adoption ambassador. Once you've completed your trainings, you can then work with any of the three paw colors below, and you'll receive all three of those paw colors on your badge. We want you to use your judgment when picking appropriate dogs to work with. The descriptions of the dogs are general traits. They may describe all or some of the behavior that the dog in the corresponding level exhibits. Purple's going to be the easy dog, a well-socialized dog that can walk on a loose leash. Orange is going to be an average dog, maybe a little pulling, maybe a little barking towards other dogs. And a green is going to be one of those pulling like a freight train, bouncing off the wall dog. The other two paw colors are going to be lead, which is a red paw, and a B-mod, which stands for behavior modification. They do require special training. Lead dogs can pull like freight trains on the leash, and they can be extremely reactive and also display some behavior issues. The black paw color signifies a B-mod dog, which is a behavior modification dog. And they may display significant behaviors. There are several volunteer pathways that you can take here at the shelter. It all starts with this presentation, the Dog Behavior and Safety class. There is the Dog Enrichment pathway, which includes kennel enrichment, dog walking, which also includes activities such as sleepovers, off-site walks, fun things like that that you can do with the dogs. There's also Bath Brigade, which is bathing our animals, getting them ready for adoption. The next department is Dog Adopter Engagement, which includes a Dog Adoption Ambassador. So this is great if you're a people person, you love to interact with people, and would like to help get our pets adopted. The next department is dog care. So this is in substitution for a gym membership. You can come in and help clean kennels and get the living space of each dog nice and comfy for them. Welcome to our kennels. So these pictures here are our kennel area. This is our adoptable section. Kennels A through D are where we house our little dogs, and kennels 10 through 13 and 1 through 9 are our main adoption kennels. So this is where most visitors are going to come to look at adoptable dogs. We use these yellow barriers to mark off areas that aren't available to the public. You want to make sure you're closing the barriers behind you if you pass through them, otherwise people will just end up following you right on back. The flex kennels are kennels 33 through 38. This is where sometimes we house dogs with behavior issues in these kennels. A lot of times you're going to see signs on these kennels that mark them as lead dogs. And you don't want to enter those kennels unless you are a lead. If a kennel has a sign on it that says do not feed or recovering from surgery, you also don't want to enter. And if you're ever in doubt, ask a staff member. The bottom photo here is showing the 20s. This is where we house adoptable dogs and sometimes dogs that are not quite ready for adoption yet. We have some restricted areas here in our shelter, which include the stray section, which you don't want to go into unless you're accompanied and requested by a staff member. Sometimes we'll have dogs that are walkable in this area, and we'll put signs on their kennels that they're okay to go out for walks. The other section that you never would enter is the 70s and 80s. This kennels are our quarantine area, so you would not be entering this area. Kennel Cough is a restricted access area just because it's such a tight space. We still walk dogs in these sections, but we don't provide kennel enrichment. Volunteers don't provide that. It's only provided by staff since it's such a confined area. Consent is not just for people. So asking a dog for consent, you're going to get low and sideways. You let the dog come to you and gently pet or touch the dog on their side or shoulder for a few seconds and then stop. If the dog comes closer to you for more attention, then you're in. You can start petting and interacting with them. If they move away, you want to give them some more space, go a little more slowly, and try tossing some treats to see if you can lure them over to you. In this slide, you can see a kennel aid here demonstrating how to approach a kennel. As you can see, he's side facing to the dog. He's not making direct eye contact in the first photo. In the second, he's interacting with the dog a little bit more. And then in the third photo, the dog's actually approaching to sniff his hand there. We have an enter-exit protocol here in our shelter. The idea is not to teach bad habits to our dogs. So we don't want to be opening those kennels when the dogs are jumping up on the kennel. We want to wait until they have 4 paws on the floor before you enter the kennel. In our kennel area, we have a freezer that has hot dogs in there. That's the main high-value treat we use. So you're going to wait for quiet, 4 paws on the floor, toss some treats, and then enter the kennel by pushing the door inwards to get the dog out. You also don't want to enter a kennel if another staff or volunteer is opening another kennel at the same time, just in case both of the dogs get out. That would be a bad situation. And you don't want a huge crowd of people when you're opening a kennel, so wait until there's not a lot of people outside that kennel. We only remove dogs from our kennels on slip leashes or leashes clipped to martingale collars. We don't remove dogs on harnesses just because you do not have the control that you need. Walking through the building, you want to make sure that the dog is by your side and under control at all times. At corners, there's a lot of opportunities for people to run into each other at corners. So you always want to make sure you're yelling coming in or coming out or corner. If there's a blind corner or intersection, And check the mirrors. We have mirrors throughout our building, and if you decide to do the dog walking pathway, you will actually have some training on where each mirror is. Positive reinforcement is the training method that we promote here at the Humane Society. It's gentle, it's fun, and it's reinforcement based. The main reinforcement we use is treats. All animals really respond well to these methods, but we feel it's especially important for those that work with homeless dogs to help them build confidence and trust in people by teaching them in a non-threatening manner. What to do if there's a loose dog? This seems to be every volunteer's worst nightmare, and it's really not an emergency at all. It happens to the best of us. Just don't panic. You don't want to try and grab the dog. Just calmly follow the dog until it stopped running. We have a lot of doors in this building for this reason. There's not an easy escape route for the animals. So if a dog gets away from you, it's more dangerous for you to panic and grab the dog than it is for you to calmly follow them until they've stopped running. You can loop a leash over their head, and then staff members are always happy to help. So you can always ask a staff member for their help if they're nearby. Reporting illness or injury, this is extremely important. If you feel a dog is not feeling well, maybe they have some vomit or diarrhea in the kennel, or appears ill or injured, this needs to be reported immediately to a staff member. You can always let the behavior department know. There should be someone in the behavior department 7 days a week. We're right outside of the kennel cough area. Or you can just find another staff member and report it to them if you can't find someone from the behavior department. If you're interacting with an animal and it's injured, you also need to report that immediately to a staff member so we know how to treat them and can get them treatment right away. If bitten or injured, that's a risk that we all take when we work with animals. This has to be reported. It's required to be reported to a staff member immediately. You are encouraged to seek medical attention. There's Allen Moore Emergency Hospital is right down the street from here. You are covered by L&I as a Humane Society volunteer. And we do need an incident report from you within 72 hours, and you can send this directly to the volunteer manager. If there's a fire, walk calmly towards the exit in the dog adoption lobby and head towards Pine Street. The other thing you don't want to do is release the dogs. This will create chaos and probably more dogs will be injured this way. Our building is designed to be fire safe. Each of the heavy doors is a fire safe door. And we have a great response time from the fire department. So now we're going to get into some observation of dogs. We are going to talk about subjective versus objective observation. Subjective would be just labeling an animal, so looking at the picture of this little dog and saying, oh, it's happy. Whereas objective is dealing with facts. So we are going to actually be describing the behavior, describing what we see. So this dog has an open mouth and his eyes are squinty. Objective observation is very important working with shelter animals. Subjective observation can be riddled with our assumptions and our own perceptions, which can cloud our judgment and create an emotional response to a situation, which is never a good idea working with shelter dogs. So if you, for example, you grew up with a lab, and so you're going to assume that all labs are the same. This could get you into big trouble working in a shelter. We also want to use language that's going to reduce the ability for multiple interpretations. This is going to allow us to more effectively communicate and understand what's happening. So when we're objectively assessing a dog's body language, we want to look at not just the parts, but the whole picture. So we're going to look at the eyes, the ears, brow, mouth, tail, any body tension, and vocalization. So you're going to look at those pieces individually and then put it together to get a picture of how the dog is feeling. So, for example, this little Chihuahua mix here has some stress wrinkles between its eyes. Its mouth is tightly shut, body very stiff and rigid, and if you'll see, that tail is tucked all the way up under its body. So this dog is tense, not a dog that you just want to lean down and scoop up. You might get into trouble doing that. The environment plays a huge part in the dog's reaction. So every dog's going to have a reaction to being in a shelter. Some dogs are more adaptable and resilient. Some dogs come in here and it doesn't have a huge impact on them. Other dogs, it affects them so strongly that they hide in the back of the kennel. They growl when you try and interact with them. Noise stimulation, there's no downtime. They're in a constant state of high arousal. These are just a few of the stressors that these dogs are having to deal with. That's why it's so different working with shelter animals than it is working with animals in a more stress-free environment, such as your home or a friend's house. Triggers are anything that starts the stress reaction in the dog's body and mind. And examples could be small children at eye level, strangers, sudden movements, someone in uniform, and sometimes we have no idea what triggers a particular dog. Trigger stacking is what happens when people say a dog snaps out of the blue, and it's actually a result of trigger stacking. So something that a dog could tolerate in a normal situation, such as a child approaching or petting inappropriately. When you add that up with someone vacuuming and then the dog is experiencing allergies, you have stacked all those triggers into what results in a bite. And so if you can imagine all the triggers that shelter dogs are already experiencing, they are already triggered to potentially snap. So you want to be extra careful interacting with shelter dogs and remember that they're already triggered. You also want to be aware of what you're looking like to the dogs. We don't know what these dogs' past experiences are. So if you're wearing a hat, they could, that could be scary to them. A hoodie up, glasses, we don't know where they come from, and we want to make them as comfortable as possible. We're going to talk about body language in these slides. This is relaxed body language. As you can see here, lying down relaxed, open mouth smile, standing relaxed, frog legs, also called splooting. Splooting's more fun to say. Body loose and friendly, lying down resting. Here are a few of our past shelter dogs showing some relaxed body language. On the left was a dog named Romeo. He's very relaxed. Here in the background are his adopters. Romeo, this is how he entered our shelter, very relaxed. He's a very resilient dog and just a happy social dog that had a nice outcome getting adopted. Jade is the dog in the middle, showing off her sploot. She's in our Bath Brigade area. We've been playing for a little bit. She's relaxed in this picture. Nice open mouth panting. On the right is another dog named Chance that was adopted from here. This is as relaxed as this dog got in our shelter environment. If you look closely, you can see there's still a little tension in the brows, and those ears are really alert, pricked forward. This is as relaxed as Chance would get in our shelter. Fearful. Some fearful body language that you may see would be ears back, tucked tail, trembling, avoiding eye contact, crouching, cowering, lip licking, backing away, running away, no interest in food, and doesn't want to approach people. Fear is likely the most common cause of aggression towards unknown people, and most behavior problems are caused by a combination of environmental and genetic factors. This dog in this photo is a very fearful dog named Autumn. She came into our shelter. If you look closely at this picture here, you can see the stress wrinkles in her brow, the tightness of her mouth. Her tail is tucked as far as she can tuck. The couple in the background ended up fostering her. She went home that evening, met their dog, and instantly relaxed, jumped on the couch, and they did what we call foster failed. They ended up adopting her the next day. So a happy outcome for Autumn. There are three main reasons for fear towards people. One is very little exposure to people when puppies. There's a key socialization period. If dogs don't receive socialization during this period, oftentimes it can be very difficult to socialize them later. Maybe they have a genetic predisposition towards fearful behavior, or they could have lived in an environment where they learned to associate people with fear and stress. This third reason, a lot of people come into a shelter and assume that this is the reason dogs are behaving fearfully. And it's an oversimplification. It's not always abuse, the reason that they're fearful. So it's important to remember that dogs are complex creatures and not to oversimplify their behavior. Anxious body language can include panting, pacing, spinning, jumping repetitively, yawning, or cowering. Some examples of anxious body language here. The dog is cowering, lip licking, yawning. These are also called self-soothing behaviors or displacement behaviors. Aroused or excited body language. Body forward, ears forward, hackles up, lunging, jumping on people, mouthiness, biting on leashes, biting or tugging clothes. Here's some examples of aroused or excited body language. Jumpiness and mouthiness happens a lot in shelter environments, especially the longer dogs are here. The more jumpy and mouthy they tend to get. The stress of being here in a shelter, they get decreased interaction with people, they don't have as much exercise, and they have almost no control over their environment. Results in this increased attention-seeking behaviors. The best reaction to this behavior is to cross your arms, turn, and face the wall until the dog stops. If they don't stop, leave the kennel for a time out. We never want people to be throwing up knees to try and get dogs from jumping up on them. Never play with your hands. Those are what toys are for. That's not something we want to encourage in our shelter animals. Aggressive behavior, freezing, ears back, eyes wide, showing teeth, barking or growling, air snapping, tense mouth, wide-eyed or what we call whale-eyed. This is a great progression of aggressive body language. You can see in the beginning the ears back, some whale eye on the left photo. This dog is likely making some vocalizations such as growling. And then on the very far right picture, you can see the dog's showing its teeth in a snarl. Aggression is often fear-based. In a dog's mind, the best defense is a good offense. This dog in this picture is actually not aggressive. He just has a funny little smile. Pretty cute little dog. He got adopted really, really quickly. So now it is test time. So I'd like you guys to look at this dog and using objective language, describe what you see. So I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to look at this animal. Maybe you can jot down a few objective observations you could make about this little dog. So a few observations that jump out to me about this little dog would be, you could have said tail was tucked, his brow is furrowed, mouth very tight, crouching, his ears are back. Those are a few of the objective observations you could have made. Now how about this next slide? Take a few seconds to look at this and maybe jot down some objective observations about this dog here. A couple of things that jump out to me when I see this dog is it's displaying what I would call soft eyes, has a large open mouth smile. You can see this dog is displaying a classic sploot or frog legs, relaxed. His ears are back. And then how about this one? This one I'm going to give you guys another maybe 10 seconds to observe and think of some objective descriptors you could use for this dog. For this one, I would say this dog is displaying whale eyes. You can see, if you look closely, the tail is tucked all the way back up to the front legs there. So a lot of tension in this animal. Again, the furrowed brow, the ears, they're not back, but they're down and sideways on the dog's head. The mouth is tightly closed. Legs are tucked up underneath it. And I'm going to give you guys a few seconds for this one as well. Here we see this dog is crouching, again, tail tucked, lip licking, a little bit of whale eye. I'll give you guys a few seconds for this slide as well. Now this slide is an interesting slide. I've had folks struggle with this one in the past, having difficulty interpreting the dog's body language. For this slide, when I see this dog, I see a relaxed open mouth smile, soft eyes, relaxed ears to its side. Some people see this particular breed or breed mix and have a hard time understanding its behavior. This is where it's important to be an objective observer. So a lot of times the pit bull breed or pit bull type dogs have a reputation that's been built in our media, and people have negative feelings about this particular breed type. So it's important to not bring those into your work when you're volunteering here in a shelter. Pit bull type dogs are one of our most popular dogs. We love them here. So if you have seen their portrayal as negative in the media, we encourage you to come in. We'll introduce you to some really nice, friendly pit bull type dogs, and hopefully change your mind about this really nice breed. I'll give you guys a few seconds for this slide as well. For this dog, we see whale eye, a furrowed brow, the mouth is tightly closed, and you can see the tension in the mouth. This slide is a trick slide. This is not actually a whale eye. This dog is my dog, and I'm just trying to get her into a slideshow successfully. This is she just has naturally white showing in her eyes, and she's tired of me taking so many pictures of her. I'll give you guys a few seconds for this slide. This is another tricky one. This dog is showing some whale eye, but she's also showing, she's not completely tense. So her tail is tucked, but it's not tucked all the way up. Your ears are alert and perked. This dog is named Zoe. She was a very, very anxious, nervous, tense dog. She ended up getting adopted. She wasn't in our shelter for too very long, and this was about as relaxed as she got in our shelter environment. Still a lot of tension here. I want to thank you guys for watching this presentation. If you'd like some more information, there's a lot of great websites out there. For this particular presentation, we pulled from the Center for Shelter Dogs as well as ASPCA's Pro website, and we encourage you guys to go check those out for more information. And this is one of our shelter dogs, Hippo, saying thank you guys for volunteering. We appreciate you.